Hello everyone, back for another quick top 5. Bit of a fun one again in terms of the best resources in games. And no, I don't mean like the sort of nuclear power that you get in Power Grid. I mean the tokens, those cool things that you are getting your hands on when you earn resource during a game. Not just cubes, we want more than that. So first of all, I will give an honourable mention to Potion Explosion. All of the resources, which you have no idea really what they are apart from the ectoplasm marbles because they're that specific colour. The rest of them, they're just coloured marbles, and what is not to love about them? It makes the whole game work as it's rolling down this sort of dispenser, and they click and clack together as you pull them out. What more do you want from components than good noises and sort of chunkiness in your hand? And marbles really do tick that box. Because they don't really represent too much of what they are, it detracts a little bit, but what a resource as an honourable mention. For number 5 on the list, let's give it up to the stunning little arrowheads and the tablets of Ruins of Arnak. There's no denying that they are really nice. Some people have made those tablets even cooler by giving them a bit of a wash that just helps that sort of text on them pop. Even the rubies, they're pretty cool as well. I think it just shows that even in a very much a Euro game, you can have some nice components, because they're just that extra bit when you're, they're not just cardboard tokens, chits. The fact they come in the game are just as standard, it does make me feel like maybe 5 years ago they would have been just cardboard. But really happy to see that they're sort of included. They're just that extra bit nicer. And, it's not often that you have stuff like arrowheads as resources in a game. Next on the list, I'm going to put 2 Stonemaier games because they're slightly cheating, and so I don't want to put them too much higher. First of all, Wingspan has those lovely, lovely eggs. Don't get me wrong, that's really nice. But when you upgrade those wooden cubes to different bird meeples, wow, that is a really cool thing. And then when you upgrade the food tokens to little wooden or plastic fish and worms and stuff like that, it takes that whole experience to the next level. It's cheating a little bit because they are very expensive to upgrade, and they don't come in that base box, but the eggs do. And I think that alone, that's a really cool component. Now, I said 2 Stonemaier games because Scythe is also a cheat, so I'm not putting it in as like the main thing. Again, it's got the cool mechs, they're cool, but the resources, they're kind of meh, they're kind of shaped, but when you upgrade them to those realistic resources, those really heavy metal pieces for like the metal bars, the oil barrels and like little bags of food, they're really cool. But again, I don't want to put it higher on this list because they are expensive and extra. They're not in that base game. At number 3, it is one game where I prefer the original, but I have to give a tip of the hat to the newer components, and that is Sentry Golem Edition. Now, personally, I prefer the original Spice Road, but there's no getting past the fact that going from the different spice cubes to the golem gems, it's chalk and cheese of which version looks better. Yes, it's fine, the order, you've got your red, yellows, greens and brown cubes, that's great, but the gems, there's no denying that anyone walking past the 2 games, one of them is going to attract more eyes. And for a game like Sentry, Spice Road Golem Edition of that first game, it can be a little bit of a dry experience trying to explain why it's fun. It's a bit of a puzzle that you're going through. Having those nicer resources does help the game get to the table that bit quicker with a few different people. And then once they've realised they like it, maybe you can, bring Spice Road to the table and they won't care. But visually, they're really, really appealing, those gems in Sentry Golem Edition. Next up is a big 10th anniversary box. It's on the shelf somewhere behind me about here. Container. Now, the original one, it had sort of like, I think they were wooden blocks and stuff to put on the container ships. But with the 10th anniversary edition, they went all out to make these ridiculously huge ships and chunky containers to go on them. It's completely unnecessary for the style of game it is. But again, a bit like with those gems in Century Golem Edition, they just putting those on the table, having them in front of players, seems to elevate the experience, even though you hardly get that hands-on with them. You sort of shuffle them around on your player board when you make them and store them. They're sat on your container ships for a long time, and then they go and sit on a sideboard for the scoring at the end of the game. You're hardly having them in your hands at all, and yet they still do elevate the experience. Now, normally it's only because you're getting these resources and playing around with them in your hands that they're good, but visually, those containers in container, wow, they are cool resources, even if the game itself has a very uncool theme. And last but not least, it is a game that has left my collection now, not because it's a bad game, because it's a fairly solid game. Everdale has incredible resources. Everdale is a brilliant, relatively easy to teach worker placement game with cards. It's just after a few games I felt it's good, but it's not going to be getting back to the table over maybe some heavier worker placement games. But the resources in Everdale feel like you've got a deluxe Kickstarter version. You know, you've got a special edition, because you've got these lovely little wood pieces, you've got these amber crystally things, and then those squidgy berries, which are just, it feels really odd. They feel cool. They're like almost like a silicon or something like that. They're just these squidgy berries. It feels like you've got the game and then you've gone and spent, like with say Scythe, you've gone and bought those realistic resources to upgrade the game, but they just come as standard. Now, yes, you've got the issue that maybe without those, with just cardboard chits or tokens, maybe the game could be cheaper so more people could play it. But from a resource point of view, coming in the base box, Everdale's resources are phenomenal. Even though I think the game's just good plus, good, great game to teach or play, the resources are just, it surprised me when I opened that box at the start and were like, wow, this is the standard edition. Anyway, what game has components that are just, or resources particular, not components, resources that take the game to the next level, or just like the visual appearance or whatever? What have I missed on this list? Let me know in the comment section below. Until next time, I'm Oliver East, signing out.